All right, good afternoon, folks. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Member Growth with Yankee. I think I know all of you, so I'll be really short with my introduction. I want to thank everybody for coming to our 37th annual conference. This is our second year at this hotel, and I hope everybody has a great couple days. I have the pleasure of introducing our first speakers. We actually have two of our business partners going to be presenting today. Definitely want this to be kind of an open discussion and not just a presentation, so please feel free to speak up and ask questions and making sure we're having a fruitful conversation for the kind of the kickoff for the next couple days. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Mike Williams. He's the Managing Director with SpendMend. Mike has led large-scale operational transformations across complex IDNs, driving measurable improvements in supply chain performance, cost efficiency, and service delivery. Mike has guided successful consulting engagements for leading academic medical centers, major IDNs, and standalone hospitals. He is also recognized for visionary leadership in designing and implementing innovative logistics and supply chain solutions to address evolving healthcare system challenges. Mike has a proven track record in strategic planning and performance. The second person I'd like to introduce is Gaston Carrera. Got that right?
Close.
All right. Carrera. Better? All right. Gaston has 7+ years of healthcare supply chain consulting experience, specializing in purchase services and supply chain optimization across IDNs, individual hospitals, and health systems. Grounded by a clinical background as a surgical tech, ensuring clinically aligned, patient-centered solutions. He is skilled in gathering and analyzing enterprise-level supply chain and purchase services data, building strategic roadmaps that prioritize high-impact, low-disruption, cost-containment opportunities. Gaston has successfully led purchase services initiatives resulting in multi-million-dollar savings, using data-driven strategies aligned with system-wide goals and GPO to leverage to drive sustainable cost savings. He is also recognized for being an expert in project leadership and purchase services, including savings tracking, realization schedules, risk mitigation, and vendor accountability. Please welcome the SpendMend team.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having us here today. We are excited to talk about our program and give you some background on what SpendMend does from a cost containment perspective. The key thing that we like to talk about is our ability to really provide insight and visibility into data. That's really what drives our ability to manage what we manage. SpendMend originally started off doing what's considered AP audits. We call it profit recovery. And that's really what the background of the core company function has been. Over the years, the company's grown and changed our organizational structure as well. And we've developed solutions around not just the finance area, but supply chain, some clinical programs where we look on physician preference items and do things like that. And we also have a very strong pharmacy group. Really what our goal is to try and drive value throughout healthcare organizations where our focus is strictly on healthcare, and we truly try to find non-clinical solutions to the space. So we're looking throughout all of the spend categories and trying to drive value there. What we're doing with the Yankee Alliance program is really focusing on purchase services. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about why we're focused on purchase services specifically and what is different about what our solution is. But you guys all live this every day. I've been an operator as well inside hospitals, and purchase services tends to be just a big black hole. It's very difficult to find information. It's very difficult to figure out what the spend patterns are. Oftentimes, we're dealing with high-level numbers. We're taking invoices that have been consolidated to one number that hits into a GL account. Very little detail for folks to be able to work from. And what the challenges in general, just figuring out what's happening within it. A lot of times the invoices that are coming through in purchase services are going straight to a department. The department's validating that, yes, this service was done. They don't necessarily know all of the attributes of the contract that they're signing off on. They're just saying, yes, this service got done. I know that they were here. I know that they did the work. but they don't necessarily know the contract terms. They don't necessarily know or understand what even the line items are. So a lot of things get through on the line items on those individual invoices that are not being really reviewed by the contracting folks that maybe set the original agreements up. And there's also turnover in departments and things like that as well. So even if the folks were involved at the very original onset of the contract, there might be folks that are signing off on the activity that's coming through on those agreements that maybe don't have the basic knowledge of that agreement in place. Again, it's at the department level. And a lot of these contracts, a lot of these invoices that are coming through in these contracts are also very complicated. There's hundreds of pages. If you think in terms of things like laundry and linen, where you're getting a stack of invoices coming to a department, there's really no way for anybody to validate what's happening within those, all the details that are coming through on those. So, as an advisory group, our focus over the years has been to try and solve for that problem. And it's very, very labor intensive to have folks try and take that information, put it into a format that you can, make it digital and you can do something with it, because it's manual. And you've got to have people rekeying the information. What we have developed is a tool and a technology that we call InView. InView is able to take that information and we put it into a format that allows us to look at the information digitally. A lot of times what we see in purchase services is folks are looking at high-level benchmarks, they're looking at high-level KPIs, but again, they're not getting down into the nuances of what's exactly happening in it. There's just a huge amount of invoices that are coming through, and there is a lot of complication to these agreements. You think in terms of food service and all these different agreements that come through. The ability to take that information, put it into a format that's able to be used. We're able to take an invoice that comes through. We are able to extract the detailed information coming off of that. We're able to tell our technology where we need to get the information from. We can then organize that information into a usable format. So the usable format provides us with the ability to organize it and stratify the information so that we can then use it to help to drive value. And it gives us a lot of visibility into those invoices that are coming through that, again, folks typically aren't able to see. If they can maybe spot check some invoices and see things coming through. And what we're able to see is things that don't match the contract, items that are not on the contract that was originally set up. We're able to see fees that are coming through on the agreement or on the contracts that might not be on the agreement. We're also able to track and see if there's been annual increases that come through the agreement. Are they actually coming through at the right rate? Because oftentimes they're not. So we're going through and trying to find out the granular detail coming through on these invoices. If you think about it in terms of what you typically get from your ERP system around supplies, you're getting this kind of level of detail. You're able to see those individual lines coming through and you're able to do something with that information. Before this technology, there's really no way to do that in the purchase services space. So we're able to take that information, stratify it, put it into a format that's workable, and then organize the information. We call it actionable data. We're also able to take that information and we put it into a portal that allows the information to be organized, and we can set it up in a couple of different ways, but we've developed a way to organize it so that, again, you can go in and see what's happening inside the purchase services space. You can pick a specific contract that's happening in that space. It organizes it in a way that you're able to see all the charges that are coming through. We categorize those charges by the different types of charges that are hitting. It allows us to look at benchmarking at the line item detail within the space. Again, there's nothing wrong with having benchmarking at a high level and to drive KPIs within purchase services, but the ability to see line item charges that are coming through and understand what's off contract, what's on contract, because we're able to also digitize, we call it templating a contract so that we can compare the contract to what's happening on those invoices as well. So it gets a lot of the details that folks are just not able to see in an organized fashion. And again, it makes it actionable and it gives you information that you can work with to try to drive value. This is a program that we've put in place with our partners at Yankee Alliance, where we're able to to provide this to the organization and to the different organizations inside Yankee Alliance. So I'm going to let Gaston talk about some of the details as far as how we run the program and what is happening inside the program to date. And I'll turn it over to him. We can.
All right. So here at SpinMen, part of the Purchase Services Advisory Group, we're not generalists. We try to get this point across right and early, right? We're looking at, highly complex categories. We have subject matter experts across the board to take on a lot of these challenges that we're encountering today. So to set ourselves apart, from a nuclear pharmaceutical perspective, or if we've got, waste management running through InView, we have the capabilities to really drive into those benchmarks. From a clinical services perspective, the telemedicine space, we're seeing a lot of opportunity there most recently, dialysis services, et cetera. But, not to belabor the point here, but these are just some of the key areas that we're able to focus on. One of the key pieces that we want to talk about in a little greater detail is the opportunities for collaboration. So Clinical Reference Lab is a space where we'll be meeting with the Yankee Alliance members here in the next coming week, right, Dwayne? Yep, where we're going to be looking at how can we leverage the purchasing power. There are a lot of complexities associated with this, right? There's the contract expirations that, don't necessarily line up. There's key performance indicators. There's regional complexities in terms of optimizing operational, advantages. So a lot of what it is that we're trying to do here is really circle the wagons, have those in-depth conversations with our subject matter experts and, not only Clinical Reference Lab, we're looking at meeting with the laundry and linen folks as well here in the next coming week. So want to strive for some conversation here in this particular space, but really we're just trying to get this off the ground in terms of working collaboratively to see if we can drive some value for the IDN. And then lastly, this is just one key component or one key piece, right? There's several categories that we're looking at. We're collaboratively working with 3 members as we speak in the Yankee Alliance membership. Some of the categories that we'll be looking at, we've reviewed AP files, we've categorized AP files, and now it's onto the invoicing and looking at the contract language. So with that, I'll certainly open it up for the group if there are any comments, questions on the approach or strategy. But really, the idea here is standing up, roadmap, and then executing the implementation. So that's what I had. Okay, Matt?
Can you guys talk a little bit about just your experience and expertise, specifically in Reference Lab?
In Reference Lab.
Just had a lunch with some of the members, and obviously a big spend category, and I know you guys have done a lot of work in that space. So.
Yes, we've done a lot of work in that space. I am not the subject matter expert in Clinical Reference Lab per se, but have a lot of collaborative work. I'm just trying to think of some of the most recent. I'm fairly new at SpinMen, so I've been here a month, so forgive me for some of that. But yeah, we definitely have those folks. Mike, if you got anyone in particular that you would highlight.
So within Reference Lab in general, I think a lot of the experience that we've had in Reference Lab is around trying to make sure that we are able to get to the line item details within the space and compare what's happening inside what's happening inside the specific usage patterns and trying to see how folks are using the contracts, specifically what tests are they using it for and how are those tests being used. One of the things that we see over time whenever we look at this space as well is changes in the patterns. When you establish a contract within the Reference Lab, a lot of times it's a snapshot of a picture in time, and you started at this time, and the information changes as time goes on. So we're able to evaluate that information at the very beginning, and then we can also go back and take a look at how that contract has been used over time and see that if there's any changes in the usage pattern that occur within it too. So. Any other questions or thoughts?
I have a question. So,
Yes.
so you first pull our data, look at our data, our AP files, look at our data, then you benchmark it. At what point do you look at our individual contracts, say a local negotiated contract? At what point do you bring those in? Because if you're looking at benchmark, you've got a good benchmarking data, but you haven't looked at our local contracts yet. So at what point do you do that? Or are you only looking at our premier contracts in the
It's immediately after we categorize, right? So as soon as we can get access to them, we're obviously benchmarking because we've got that high level detail in certain categories. But yeah, it's essentially that's the next step is pulling in the invoicing, looking at the contracts, and yeah, we're just mapping those together. Okay.
Questions? All right, thank you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, so next up we have a capital session. A few years ago, Yankee worked with Amiga Solutions to build our capital equipment savings program, and to date we saved over $3 million for our members. So happy to introduce Peter and Sam. Actually, I'll let them introduce themselves. Peter's definitely not shy for sure, so I'll let him introduce himself and let you know what they're doing for Yankee, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion about how they can help us, the Yankee folks and Yankee members on the capital program. Again, capital is an area, there's a lot of opportunity for us to drive savings, and Amiga has a great solution that can help our members do that. So, Peter and Sam? And do we have a second mic? We only have one mic up here. Only one? Okay.
We'll be fine.
Okay, all right, guys. Thank you. Here you go, it's your clicker.
Sure. Thank you, Dwayne. I'm Sam Westermeyer. I'm a senior account manager at Amiga Solutions. I've been there for 5 years, and yeah, I've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of members that I'm looking at right now in the crowd, which is great, and I will let Peter introduce himself now.
Hi, I'm Peter Robson, founder CEO of Amiga Solutions. Been doing this a long time, as evidenced by the gray hair and lack of hair in general. So, and it's partly an industry condition as well. But no, we're really excited to do this. Dwayne, thank you to all the Yankee team. It's been a long slog, right? Getting consensus in this group can be a little challenging at times, right? So hopefully we're going to, and what we've tried to do today is bring examples that are very real and salient, and we'll thank people as we get there. Our whole data model is anonymous and aggregate, so anything that we share today is permissive. So please understand that we're doing this for the purpose of education and giving real examples versus bullet point examples that we hope will make it a little more actionable for all of you. And I would say that incredible parallels with SpendMend, right? You can only do as good as the data that you're given to work with. And so I will reinforce that our approach and model has some of the same both opportunities, dependencies, and limitations. So participation is critical. So please ask questions, challenge things that don't make sense. We're here to inform and educate and hopefully walk away with opportunities to help solve things for all of you. You want to start?
Sure. Yep. All right, so I'll do a little bit of the intro and then pass it back to Peter. So we're going to talk a little bit about just who Amiga is, and then obviously the topic for today, which is 3 reasons hospitals are missing savings and capital, how to stop missing those savings, and then how Amiga's platform makes it easy, and there'll be time at the end for questions. So as Peter kind of set up, Amiga's been in business for 20 years. We have 20 years of experience actually facilitating, negotiating, buying, and selling equipment in the market, and 20 years of data to go with that. We are also the leading SaaS capital benchmarking platform, and we were proud to say that this year we won the top medical equipment benchmarking and analytics platform for 2025 from MedTech Outlook. All of that was 100% client-driven. So it feels great to work for a company that not only won that award, but has also created those outcomes for our clients. I'll give a little bit of a setup about what we do, but as far as clientele, we work with hospitals like Mayo, Sutter, St. Luke's, and to name a few within Yankee, South Coast, and Sturdy. We've had the awesome opportunity to work with both of those places, and I am the account manager for those accounts, so it's great to see them here as well. And specific to Yankee, 4 or 5 years ago, I think I'm not mistaken, before I actually was at Amiga partnered with Yankee to form something called the CESP, or the Capital Equipment Savings Program. And maybe you all have submitted your budgets to Dwayne and people at Yankee over the years. We are the team actually powering the information and insights behind that. And we're hopeful that sharing a little bit more about CESP will allow there to be other opportunities that come out of this. So as a quick level set and a definition, we're going to be talking about capital. We call it medical equipment. And this is a quick definition of what we mean when we mention medical equipment. So medical equipment includes lab, IT, all the software, service, and support, and related accessories and consumables that are required for patient care. And of most importance, and just so you know, our benchmarking platform, which we'll show you a little bit about today, covers everything. So I know you all may have different internal definitions of what capital is or what medical equipment is. We cover everything. So we like to set up, as far as what we do and how we do it for hospitals, everything that we do revolves around the medical and IT equipment lifecycle, so from purchase to service to disposition. And we have two halves of our whole is kind of like how we like to set it up. So on the left, we have benchmarking and analytics. This is EVMS, which is our proprietary benchmarking platform. It stands for Equipment Value Management System, value being the operative word in that equation. This includes our 9 standard benchmarking reports, all of which circle around either purchase, service, or disposition. We report savings monthly. We're actually proud to say we're one of the only, if not the only, benchmarking platform that actually tracks realized savings instead of just identified. And we also guarantee it. So we have a savings guarantee where if you don't save more money than your annual subscription cost, we will issue you a refund or a rebate for the difference. And Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the history of the company, we've never had to do that. And then the second half of our company are marketplace services. And these, we have a saying, reports don't save money, people do. And all of these services are a testament to, if you get issued a report that says you can save, we have a service that will actually help you realize those savings, whether it's sourcing equipment or supplies, contract negotiation, asset disposition or value recovery on the back end, or your general consulting services. These two things help our clients know the right price and also get the right price. So some marketing speak, I apologize, but we're talking about medical equipment. And again, for our platform, our hospitals continue to tell us that our platform enables 12 to 16% in incremental savings over and above the otherwise best price. And there are 3 primary reasons for why that is. One, we have the most complete data. So 50,000 plus data sources, over 57,000 unique product and models, and I believe that number is actually a little bit higher now. 4,100 plus manufacturers and thousands of data attributes. And as we talk about benchmarking, this is one thing we'll actually be talking today, but the best technology. So all of our technology revolves around line by line or apples to apples benchmarking, which is crucial for accuracy and data integrity. If you think about an MRI quote versus an MRI quote, each hospital might have a slightly different configuration with different software licenses or perpetual software upgrades. And the apples to apples analysis is the only way to not only get an accurate benchmark, but also to help us identify and target where those savings may live within that quote. And the easiest to use. I know some of you here are familiar with our platform, but it's through a portal. We have one-page reports. It gives you instant feedback for how your price compares to what other hospitals are paying. And it's a simple red, yellow, or green, yellow, red rating scale. We'll show you a report today, so we'll get into a little bit more about that later. But our clients do tell us it's very easy to use. And all of 93% of our reports are turned around in less than 24 hours. So as far as timing within a deal, if you need a benchmark report pushed through at the last minute, our team never has a problem getting that done. Okay, so now a little bit just of the setup. I'm sure you are all aware of this, but just to mention it, right now there's a lot of competing pressure between hospitals and suppliers, and particularly the economics around it. You may be familiar with some of the data here, but hospital margins are averaging 2 to 3%, 2 out of 5 are losing money. Obviously costs are rising and reimbursements are shrinking. There's labor shortages, clinician burnout, and 700 plus hospitals are at risk of closing. So it's a very uncertain time. I'm sure all of you have heard all about tariffs and how that's roiling the market, so I won't spend too much time on it. But the gist is your teams are working harder with fewer resources, and you're still expected to save money. On the flip side of the equation, OEM margins are averaging 15 to 25%. These 3 examples were randomly pulled. We've worked with all of them closely, so this is not meant to be a bash Siemens or Intuitive or Cardinal session. They make fantastic technology. But as hospital margins are slimmer, their margins continue to grow. And now with Hologic being acquired by PE and private equity getting into the game, as many of you know, when private equity gets involved, their job is to make money for themselves, not save money for clients or hospitals. So they expect to make more. not less. And this kind of imbalance puts hospitals in a very peculiar situation when it comes to negotiating. And the right information will be what kind of levels out that imbalance and levels the playing field. So a couple things, then I'll pass it to Peter. We're talking about benchmarking, and traditional benchmarking information has become increasingly ineffective. One thing is traditional benchmarking typically relies on primarily hospital-reported pricing. So hospitals provide their quotes or contracts, and that's what that benchmarking platform uses to benchmark. However, they don't usually submit their best and final price. So what you're comparing, yeah, please.
How many of you submit version 4 of a quote to benchmarking, but buy on version 10? Anyone? You would be amazed that a lot of big health systems don't want their pricing out there for the world. So they send in what they want rated, but in reality, they move far past that. So you don't really know where that floor is set. So it's a real issue, and we see it all the time. So again, that's part of what drives the need for different and better data, and we think we've solved for that pretty well. So it protects all of you individually, but allows you to benefit from the collective aggregation of data without breaching those confidentiality obligations. Sorry, I just wanted to
No,
make sure you hit
it's all good. And yeah, as Peter may have touched on, our platform stores everything on an anonymous aggregate basis, which gives our clients actual incentive to go back in and put their best and final price in. So if there are 30 hospitals and they're all submitting their best and final price, we're the only benchmarking platform that has that data, and all of that then is used to generate the reports that our other clients put in. So hospital A will never see hospital B's pricing, and vice versa. Additionally, pricing, bundling, placement, all the creative contracting methods that suppliers use, it adds price uncertainty, and we'll go through a couple examples in a second. And then equally, multi-year capital GPO contracts, they can't address market and price volatility, so benchmarking has to include other information, market information, financial information. We provide tips and best practices to also help our clients navigate the uncertain waters that hospitals are in right now. So with that setup, I will now pass it to Peter to talk about the 3 reasons that hospitals are missing capital savings. 1 being incomplete and inaccurate supplier quotes, 2, savings that are uncovered too late, and a over-reliance or reliance on GPO capital contracts. So, Peter?
Thanks. So again, want to make sure that for all of you, some of the challenges of the structural dynamics that we're talking about are specific to capital, right? The SpendMen team talked about we need line item detail, right, to be able to do some of the magic that we do with our technology. Wouldn't it be great if you all could start with line item detail and actually get it from your suppliers, right? Imagine if you knew what every software option actually cost, how much it would add to move from a 4-centimeter detector on a new CT to an 8, to a 16. Everything has a price. Just, we'd all love to know it so we can do accurate comparisons and start with a grounding on what am I really spending, right? When you buy a car, you're gonna know how much it goes from cloth to leather seats, right, or to add a sunroof. And the same logic is very applicable to capital. It's just, it would be more convenient for suppliers if they didn't have to provide that level of detail, because it makes their job a little bit more complicated in the contracting and negotiation process. So I don't know how much this first point is a surprise to you, but we deal with contracts, proposals, quotes from all the big suppliers, right? Thousands and thousands of them. And more than 30% of the inbound data that our team touches has errors, like mistakes, not, little tweaks and edit a comma, but structural financial details that are either inadvertently incomplete or inaccurate, or sometimes you're left wondering, was this a deliberate effort to make it harder for me as the recipient of that quote to make a good decision? And line item detail, it's interesting, we just had a situation just this week where the supplier, a big leading imaging supplier, didn't provide any line item detail in the quote. And we have a lot of relationships because our team negotiates on behalf of clients all the time. And so it was one of Sam's clients, and it was for an MRI. And we said, well, it's going to go through benchmarking. The client will be asked to get line item details. So if he said, oh, I got it here right now, I'll just send it over to you guys. So it's sitting there available. It takes more clicks to hide that information than it does to just share it. So sometimes what we hear from folks in your roles is, well, I don't want to burden them, make them do a new quote. Like, get over it. It's there, right? It's just, and we'll share some examples of some actual quotes that'll help highlight some of this. So the other thing that I, for those of you that have been doing this a long time and see some of the same cycles with suppliers, you start to get familiar with the structure, the rows, the columns, right? But increasingly, reps have discretion to construct quotes based on how they want to present it to clients. So what they call the discounts, the level of detail they provide, the number of columns or rows. So there's a lot more variability today than there used to be in more standardized contracting. So again, all that does is make your job harder, right? Makes it more of a guessing game than any of us would like, but leaves an opportunity and creates an opportunity to kind of address that. And this is what we hear, right? It's a shell game. And what we remind our clients every day is like, look, your reps have a job that their job is to maximize productivity for their company and also create value for you, right? The healthiest exchange in a supplier and buyer relationship is where everybody has to leave a little bit of blood on the field, right? Because the give and take results in typically those best outcomes. But when you're under the gun, there's pressure to get it done, right? Or the doctor's starting a new procedure in a couple weeks, and you need to have equipment there. It can really hamstring your efforts to get that final value for your organizations. The good news is there's ways to work around that without compromising timing, clinical effectiveness, and without causing users to have to switch at all, right? It's savings for like-to-like, same products. We joke about in our company that, some doctors like Coke, some like Pepsi, some like Dr. Pepper. They can have whatever they want. They just need to tell you and give you just a little bit of opportunity to figure out how to get them what they want, what they need, what they prefer, without having to overpay to meet those kind of supplier-driven deadlines. So here's an example of what we see a lot. And for those of you that are familiar with communications technology that powers a lot of operating rooms, part of the value of what our system does, the line by line, row by row, is it checks the math. And so here, I got you. So if you do this math, this is the list price, the sum of, this is a multi-page quote, right? And then this first communications discount is just a big bulk discount that was applied to the quote. And if you do the math, this row less this row equals that total. This particular client, who allowed us to use this with their permission, got an extra discount because they do a lot of volume. And the discount names, by the way, are often very creative, right? They don't necessarily correlate to a specific promotion or program. But if you do that math, this got missed. And this is actually one of your clients. And so and we're very careful about how we present it. We say, look, it must have been a math error. There was $110,000 or almost 10% of what you thought you were going to have to pay that was calculated in error. You might want to go back to the supplier and ask them to recheck the math. And again, it seems so simple, but when you take a quote with 50, 100 rows and different quantities, making sure that it's right, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. Is the currency of time starting to creep up in its importance? And that's not meant to be a smart aleck, but for many hospitals, time is more expensive than cash. Anyone, does that resonate? I'll take the head nods as a yes. So again, if you had all the time in the world, if you had the ability to pull things into Excel off PDFs or static images, right, it'd be much easier for you to figure this out. Our system helps do that and hopefully helps inform you before it's too late to not be able to act upon these opportunities. So here's another example. And this is one that will give credit to the South Coast team, again with permission. This is a quote for a navigation system. and little things that you sometimes think, boy, how did that happen? But if you look at this SKU here, the ENT navigation instrument set, and everybody wants to know, what benchmark should I compare it to? Our advice on this quote is compare it to itself. Because if you flip to the options on the back page in case you want more, again, look at the price first time, same supplier quote, optional additional quantities that you can buy for $10,000 instead of $17,000. Again, it seems so simple, but without a technology-based system, without a systematic way to help you find these nits and errors, it's easy to sort of miss it, and again, it adds up. Our philosophy about savings is this: home runs, CFOs and CEOs obviously focus on the big ticket spend, the big dollar items, but in our world, the work that all of you do, home runs are often a series of singles that are strung together, day over day, week over week, so that it adds up much more quickly than you think. And if you think about how hard all of you and your doctors and your nurses and technologists are working to generate per case revenue, right? Don't underestimate the power of little dollars to Dax Costa from South Coast. What's your line now? When the rep comes in and says, well, Dax, it's only $10,000. Dax is now of the mindset, and he'll share this with us, only $10,000? You're walking into my office and saying, only $10,000? Do you know what my team has to do to generate $10,000 of effectively net profit, not revenue, right? So how many procedures is it? And for South Coast, it's probably $1 million of revenue that needs to be driven incrementally to offset some of these costs, like this little costs. So one more example, and this one, bear with us. It's a series of builds, and we just want to walk you through it. I want you to note the product catalog. So in the work that GPOs do and your contracting departments do, there's specific products, there's services, there's features, there's packages that are all under contract, and the way that we track that is using catalog numbers or discrete or binary SKUs, right? So this is for a CT scanner. So now there's this option available with this scanner for a software package that you can buy for $90,000. This is the same sequence of 4 quotes over about a 2-month period. But now there's a promo that you can get this software package wrapped in that was $90,000, but now it's worth $150,000. Wait a minute, was it 90 or is it 150? I'm confused. It's not a rounding error, but it gets better. So remember that SKU that we looked at the beginning, right? The CHVH SKU, single item, single product, validated in our catalog. Wait, now you get more. Same SKU, same product code, now has 2 advanced features that are otherwise sold separately. And this is done to accommodate the unique demands of an individual hospital asking for parity in price and help from the supplier getting the cost of the scanner to be achievable. This was going to a small rural site, right? Money was super tight. But this is the stuff that if you can't see it, if you can't measure it, if you're not aware that it's happening, what can you possibly do other than go to the clinical team and say, there's something amiss here? And often their answer is going to be, we're out of time. We're going to lose budget if we don't act. We're going to not have time to do the site plan and get the system installed. So all those forces are lining up to make it near impossible for you to act upon this stuff unless you have it early enough, clear enough, and know what you can do with that information. And again, that's part of what we welcome the opportunity to support for our clients, is thinking through how do you not just find these issues, but what do you do about it? How do you get it corrected, back on track? And by the way, another plug for Yankee, disseminate it to other people that may be in the same boat so that everybody can untangle these messes sooner, easier, and in less time. So the solution in this is actually fairly easy. Get the detail, right? You guys need the detail, we need the detail. If you don't have the detail, you're being asked by your suppliers to do a job that is just getting harder and harder by the minute. They have it, You deserve to know it, and what we find is that the answer will always be unequivocally. Any guesses? No, I can't do it. Great, well, I can't buy. Suddenly, they add one more letter. Yes, it's now a 3-letter word. You have to have the intestinal fortitude to know that suppliers are trained to do things that can advance things as efficiently as they can for them, but also for you. But that asking for some of these things is well within your rights and it doesn't cost anything and you deserve to know. Imagine if you knew that a software package that was adding $200,000 to a CT quote was going to be used by Dr. Jones, hypothetical clinician, for 2 cases a year. Could you have a conversation that says, Dr. Jones, for $200,000, there's 2 cases that you're doing. Is this something that, a lot of times what we hear, oh, no. I didn't realize it was going to add that much cost. There's another way that I can get there, at least for a year or for 2 years. Maybe we can add it to our next scanner. That's the kind of collaboration that you'd be amazed that you see from physicians and nurses who, when presented with good information, they'll often say, no, we want to help the organization be healthy, so it may not make sense, and I totally buy in. And I know that sounds like kind of, mumbo jumbo, right? Really? Doctors, they do. They just don't often know. Making it easy, apples to apples, these are all things we've talked about, but if you don't look row by row and you don't know where the savings live, how do you know how to go back to the rep or the supplier to ask the right questions or ask where there are opportunities to compress cost, to contain cost, to maybe defer cost? What options can I add down the road? Is this an upgradable path where we could maybe make an investment today that's followed on by another capital investment in 24 months or 36 months? And as long as you know that that path exists, I think you'd be surprised how many suppliers really will help you, but you have to ask because they're trained not to offer, right? It's not in their best interest to bring the price of things down unless it's something that you need, and their success is highly dependent on your commitment to their products. And this is the part of where our platform enables this. So some of the members that have been using our platform for multiple budget cycles are finding, right, that they can uncover things more quickly, get to answers that they need in time that they don't have to be able to act on some of those things. And I'm looking at Justin, not to pick on you, but pressure rolls downhill, right, Justin? And the number of times that Justin finds a piece of information, you do a great job, right? You fight for every dollar, which is awesome. But armed with information, it's so much easier to know what to do, how to do it quickly, how to do it efficiently. And that's part of our commitment in terms of what our platform can do for you. So second reason that you miss savings, it's too late. It's too late. The doctor's already told the rep, we got this, don't worry. Supply chain, can you just get me a PO? Whoa, we need to be able to review it, to analyze it. Is that familiar to anybody? I'm sure it doesn't happen at your hospital, right? But imagine if it did. So I remember one time I was working on a project for a public hospital that was level 1 trauma center, safety net hospital, bleeding money. And we were working on an ultrasound project and over a weekend. And we reached out to the physician chief, and he was out to dinner with the supplier representative, right? Really hard to have a productive conversation when you got 2 sets of ears that maybe aren't always operating with the same aligned incentives. So another thing that we see today is that benchmarking, because it's late in the process, you desperately want to be able to add value and provide information to your constituents, your internal customers, but if not provided the time, if it's, hey, hurry up and get this done so we can get a PO cut, it does really hamstring the best of intentions and the best of efforts, and that's something that we can't change, but we can help encourage. The earlier you start this process, the more information you can share with the folks that are requesting the quotes and making those decisions, the earlier you can impact it and have an opportunity to do things. Bundling is a huge problem. I think you guys mentioned it, right? But the commingling of products and SKUs in a capital contract that contains service, right? That contains consumables, capital upgrades, right? How many times have we seen a $250,000 piece of equipment that is quoted under a placement agreement at 0? Does anybody believe that it's 0? Right? The question is, where's the $250,000 hidden? Which rows, which lines? How does it impact reimbursements? My per case cost? right? And the clinicians, it's not that they don't care, but they're slammed. They've got patients in front of them. They need the tools they need to do their job. So what we have to do is figure out, working collaboratively across traditional boundaries of spend, to say that zero isn't really zero. Department leader, as much as you're excited about getting it for free, could you just let us validate whether or not it's really free and provide some information that typically can help you be even more effective in communicating with your physician leaders. And again, most of the time what we hear in those lucid conversations is, okay, of course, I just need to do it quickly. Get it, get it. And the other thing is, when you're contracting, how do you know which lever to pull? How do you know what to ask for? Is it warranty, right? Is it extended terms? Is it zero down, zero payments? There's all kinds of promos. Most of them aren't advertised. And again, part of what our platform is designed to do is to make you aware at the right time that there's an opportunity to do something different, and give you the tools to help you go after it. Not us go after it. Empower you and enable you with information where you can be confident that you're not just chasing fool's gold or spending more time on something that isn't going to be productive. So the solution that we see work with so many clients, and some of you in this room have actually done this. Capital is often an episodic process where you fight for a batch of money at the beginning of the budget cycle, and then it quickly gets doled out because everybody's afraid of losing it, right? Again, I'm sure it doesn't happen in this member's hospitals, but imagine, right? So in that rush to spend, for reasons that we all understand, off of planning quotes that were maybe created 12 months ago and may not fully reflect price changes up or down, that there's just not enough time. So if you look at it as a perpetual process, benchmarking as a steady state, when somebody gets a planning quote 6 months before budgets are submitted, benchmark it. Know if there's opportunity. The earlier you know, the earlier everybody else can know, and that gives you a chance to do something about it. A lot of what we communicate and share is we want to share the success that all of you have with all of our customers. So our customers that include places like Sutter and Mayo, but also Sturdy and South Coast, is to disseminate best practices, to make them actionable. That was another word that the SpendMen team used that we wholeheartedly agree with. Actionability of information. Reports do not save money. Getting a benchmarking report that you get in your hands is a great first step, but all of you have to do something with it. You have to apply it, or persuade somebody that there's an opportunity, or convince the supplier, or go off a national contract for a local contract so you can get the terms that you know you're deserving of. And using tools, using technology, using reporting devices that can help offset the burden of time without having to leave too much money on the table, right, is an easy way to take capital, treat it as a regular operational workflow so it doesn't have that batch burden of all at once, all this burden, got to satisfy everybody, and it does make it a little bit easier to get these activities done without feeling that burn all at once. And then a lot of people debate this. Do I include, OpEx with CapEx decisions? That's not up to us. But if you're getting a piece of capital for $0 and you believe that it's not zero, it requires necessarily looking at the other components of cost and saying, where is this money? How do I go about it? I may have a colleague in materials management who's responsible for the consumables, but that collaboration is necessary to be able to deal with some of these issues that come up related to bundling and contracting and so forth. And again, we're very proud of the fact that our clients continue to tell us that they get value from our platform, not because we're smarter, not because we're better, but because when they're armed with the right information, they're empowered to do what they want to do, which is get the best value, but you got to provide that reinforcement. You got to provide, if you save money and nobody knows, did it really happen, right? So important. And I would say as a group, there's a certain level of modesty in supply chain and biomedical engineering and all these different functions that are mission critical. But if you don't toot the horn, at some point people don't hear it. And it's sometimes a missed opportunity to generate support and enthusiasm and consensus around the idea that maybe we can take this approach. And the one that really galls me is, well, I don't want to make the supplier mad, Really? Who's paying who? Like, be the customer. It's your money. We're not going and digging money out of their pockets, right? You're keeping money that your patients entrusted to you, that you have tight budgets that you're expected to manage, and just feel okay in the idea that they're trained to make you feel shamed and embarrassed and whatever, right? And again, we work closely with a lot of suppliers and love them. But there are sales tactics that are designed to make it harder to effectuate some of these strategies. And our goal today is to at least give you a sense of, okay, you're not crazy. It does happen. It happens everywhere, big, small, profitable, unprofitable. And part of your platform gives you the right to ask for help and say, look, I need your help staying viable. I can't afford this. Or to Dax's point, just $10,000? I love the indignance because, Dax will sometimes share the reaction. It's like, yeah, you want to get a sale that you can get commission on that adds to your goals for the year, and we want that too. You both want the same thing, just slightly different price. So, just to show you, we decided to include rather than torture you with a demo, but we're always happy to do that if anybody is interested and wants to see the technology at work. But this is another way that we address some of the questions about where do you get your data, right? About 24% of our data is user reported. 76% comes from other sources, but the user reported data, especially the price you actually execute at, is so powerful. So this is a view inside our application where the user gets to come, report the outcome that they generated, to scorecard it and report it to their leadership so that they can get the benefit, the credit of what was the outcome of the work that you're doing. Interestingly, it's also one of the ways that we overcome everybody's objection to, well, I don't want to share my data with Jack, but I really want to know what Jack paid because I know he's been doing it a long time. I bet he got a great price, but I won't share mine. Anybody ever know what I'm talking about? So we've addressed that through an anonymous aggregate data set so that we'll never share Jack's with anybody else. We'll never share Mayo's with Jack. But everybody who's using the tools benefits from the information that's inside the data set so that all of you benefit without breaching any obligations or having to disclose information that maybe you're not comfortable sharing, and we respect that. But we capture that. You also get to tell your story. Supplier wouldn't agree to savings. Doctor needed it. They start July 1, had to have the system installed. But it helps to provide that narrative to leadership so that their conclusion isn't, we tried and failed. No. We weren't able to get there because it was so important to make sure that we got our technology delivered at the time that we needed, that it was a win. And so that communication can be really, really valuable, and it's part of what's included in the monthly report. Here's just an example of a monthly report. This is just anonymized data. The names are anonymized. The actual dollar amounts are rounded to protect suppliers. But what you can see and what really all people care about is how much is in the system that you were analyzing. And this may be multiple iterations of a quote for one product. So there can be duplicated volume. There cannot be duplicated savings. We're very rigorous about deduplicated savings are the best way to bring credible, plausible information to leadership so that what you don't have is, and no offense, Mike, but have you ever met a skeptical CFO? Right? But their job is to do that. They are the stewards of the checkbook and of the resources. And so being able to provide the Mikes of the world with, hey, this is what, to the best of our ability to measure it happened. We want to make sure that the people who did the work get credit for it, including the clinicians. But telling the story, and this is something that we provide monthly so that you can track and monitor and see your success. And we're going to show some new features at the supplier showcase tomorrow. There'll be, for those of you that are already users, there'll be some cool new ways of helping track your success more on a real-time basis. Any questions before I hit the next? Okay, so this is just a little bit of we live in a world where evidence-based decision-making is really important, right? So here's another just grab from a savings summary. And this is from an actual client for their fiscal year 2024. And we were thrilled to hear this from the leader that said, this is by far the best ROI of any investment we make. And the ROI for this particular, and this is a community health system operating in the Midwest, their ROI was 148x in a 12-month fiscal year on the subscription that they paid to have access to this data. And most people that we work with would say that 148x is probably buys me another 12 months to keep doing what I'm doing without too much interruption, right? But those are the kind of ROIs that are completely doable if all of you were empowered and liberated with the right tools and support to do the work that you're already doing. Yeah.
So just quickly, this is an account that I support, again, in the Midwest, but bringing it back to benchmarking as a process, when we first started our relationship, the director of supply chain created a process where his team could not buy anything until they got an EVMS rating of good. And again, I'll show you a report, but good means EVMS data indicates less than 5% in savings are possible, average is between 5 and 10%, and poor is greater than 10%. And there have been a lot of times where one woman in particular who's awesome and she does a great job on savings, she'll put version 1 in, it gets back rated as poor, version 2 is also poor, version 3 is also poor because it's greater than 10%, and sometimes the data is so out there. And then, of course, she calls me and she's like, Sam, what is going on? I'm like, that's just the data. Your price was that bad. We have data that's indicating more is possible. But again, because it is a process and they can't buy until it's rated good, that's why they're able to save that much, and that's why they have a savings ROI of almost 150x.
That's great. Thanks, Sam. So, yes, absolutely, Debbie.
Does that change the families of that bill because they are a bigger system? Like, for example, like our hospital is a sole hospital standalone. So do you find that to be kind of a static model, or is that have some families to it depending on the size of the system, whether or not you can go back and get them to move that pretty significantly?
It's a great question, and the question was, is there a static relationship between the ROI and the size of the spend, the size of the organization? And, you know, I'd be disingenuous if I said there wasn't some correlation, right? The more you spend, the more opportunity there is. That's reality. What I will tell you is, first of all, what we would always advise you as a partner is you need to demand your savings because the places, and we know where you work, right? Like, we need you to be healthy, right? 700 hospitals at risk of closing, right? Those communities are at risk. And so for suppliers, what we encourage our clients to do is say, look, I need your help. Like, we can't stay viable if you don't help us. So you might get one sale today, but it might be your last one, and I can't afford that, you can't afford it. Help us. A lot of what we see is that there's a lack of transparency sometimes in both directions, and having those heart-to-hearts sometimes can help equalize. Yep, you might have Mayo or Sutter, and I'm sure those are big accounts for you, but like, we need it more. And first of all, if they're not a partner and they're not going to respond or at least be sympathetic, that would be the first thing we'd say is, you know, are they the right partner for today and future? But also, there are ways that you can start to consolidate spend within the organization. So one of the projects we worked on with you, right, I think it was 11 GE contracts that got collapsed down to 1. And Debbie was like unbelievable, managing these contracts, checking them every month, matching invoices, matching exceptions, what's on contract that doesn't exist anymore, what's not on contract that exists and should be. And the first answer, what do you think the first answer from the supplier was? No, we can't do it. So that's where we were very honest, worked with, and I'd say that that's not only righted the ship in that relationship, but like been transformational. So you now get one invoice?
Well, there's two, but we agreed to that.
Okay, so 2 invoices. I know this detail because we worked on it with Sam and Debbie, and the contract now in the order of the assets contracted for. Imagine the invoices come in the same order with the same reference numbers so that reconciliation is actually doable. Things that were covered that didn't exist are gone and off contract. Things that weren't covered, the flash pads, I remember, right, are now covered. So there's risk mitigation and protection. But if you hadn't driven it, if you hadn't believed in the opportunity, if you hadn't had the fortitude to say, no, I need you to do this, guys. And by the way, we had to go backstage at GE to a woman who runs sales operations because none of the front stage people even knew how to code the contract to accomplish what Debbie needed. But it's done. You guys are buying more from GE. You've committed to that relationship, so they're benefiting. And it all happened with collaboration that wouldn't have been possible if you didn't demand, to your question about, do I have the flexibility as a smaller facility? Absolutely. Absolutely. So does that address the question? Yeah, good job. And by the way, for all of you, contract consolidation, imagine if you could just remove the headache of all the invoices and, oh, the other thing, I forgot the punchline. All of the dates are now synced up, so you don't have, well, let's see, in January this expires, February this expires. You know, they build in job security by having non-contemporaneous expiration dates, which again, just the elimination of that, how many hours would you say ballpark did it save you on average monthly?
I think for my buyers, it probably saved them a couple hours every month just looking at that. But more importantly, I think it saved us a lot of money because there were times that we were getting like duplicates and it just stuff was all over the place. It was such a hot mess. And we inherited it, but we decided to disinherit it and start over and create it.
But if you hadn't cared and you hadn't asked, it would have gotten you nowhere, right? Thank you. But it is a partnership, right? And can I share the amount of money that you... So Debbie and her team generated savings for a relatively smaller hospital of just under $650,000, okay? In one initiative. How many places can you find $650,000 from a supplier you're already doing business with? You've already pretty much committed strategically to them, and that's the power of what's possible if you have the right information. So now to get to the last couple points, and then we'll move on. What we're seeing, and I don't think this is a surprise, and this is not meant in any way to be disrespectful to the GPO function, but capital contracts in the GPO world are very, very hard to standardize. People buy at different times. If everybody in this room bought the same technology, we'd have different configurations, different software packages, different amounts of training, different implementation, rigging, just delivery costs, right? So it's very, very hard to standardize at the unit level between facilities. And so the GPOs are given a very daunting task, and now it needs to span regions geographically, it needs to span time. It's hard to do. Going local, right, and the idea that you can drive even greater value or solutions for your hospital, we consistently see that local agreements in capital outperform national GPO agreements more than 90% of the time. Period, end of story. I'll stake my reputation on it. I've staked my business on it, right? You can do better, and you just need to know if you knew and you had the information that says what's possible. I know enough of you in this room that I know you'd all fight to get that done, and it is possible, and you can do it, and so please feel empowered to ask those questions every day. The other thing that is interesting to us, we're starting to see more and more large global suppliers pulling back from national aggregation strategies and instead favoring and giving you incentives to consolidate within your organization. So share of your spend, to Debbie's point, you might not spend as much as some of the other places in the room, but if you commit a certain volume of what you are able to spend, that is another great way of deriving greater value without having to increase the amount of money that you're committing to a given supplier. So keeping it local. We've talked about 12 to 16%. That's the metric that we stand behind. There's going to be variation for each supplier and each member, right? You know, if you've fully rationalized your cost and you've all new equipment and service contracts are fully optimized, you might not have as much in that given budget cycle. But by the way, if you include IT, IT is a job security for all of us in supply chain if you want to benchmark. The spreads that we see often are 40, 50% variation between like customers, like spend, identical products. So if you just knew that that variation was what we see, and we're going to give you an example in a second, it's absolutely possible. So one of the benefits that all of you get from participating in national contracts are the terms and conditions that are available. There's no reason to give those up. Premier in particular is very flexible about if you can do better on your own in a local agreement, you can still aggregate and benefit from the T's and C's. So it doesn't need to be an either or, right? And we're continuing to see a greater level of flexibility there. And bundling spend, we've had success with some of you in this room, right? Just consolidate the spend. It's amazing how many times 10 different departments within the same hospital are buying the exact same product a month apart. Okay, could we all hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and just buy it all at once? Same training, same licensing. I see Jack, would it help with parts, with training, with onboarding? I mean, obviously, right? So think about the gains that you can make just in how you buy and when you buy it. And all you got to do is tell the departments, hey, would you play ball? And largely we see yes, they just need to know. The other thing and this is we go out on a limb here, but suppliers are not villains, right? They're trying to do their job. They provide amazing technology that changes patients' lives. But the fact is the stuff's expensive and they want to sell you at a higher price. You got to tell them the truth. We walk into so many situations where the information sitting between the supplier and the member, it's broken. And everybody's playing this cat and mouse game with, well, I don't know if we have budget approval and maybe you do, right? Or we have competition and I don't know if the doctors are actually gonna agree with what you've proposed. But that helps them. Of course they're gonna respond and try to be competitive, but it also helps them know what you need and what success looks like. And the better that you can give a supplier a target to hit, right? The harder they're gonna work for you to actually get what you want done versus press you and bug you and show up in the lobby unannounced to push for the signed quote or contract, right? We've all seen it, but it doesn't have to be, but you have to share a little bit of information and you'd be surprised at what you can get back. And kudos to Yankee. One of the things that we struggled with in this discussion is we don't want to be disparaging in any way of the GPO model. It's just that the dynamics of capital are different. But Yankee had the foresight to say, look, if we can improve upon what we already have, that's our job. Our members are why we exist. And so we appreciate that never in these relationships that we built with you guys was it well, we need to protect our national contracts because they're sacrosanct. Never. That was never the discussion. And so that's great, and that gives you an opportunity without any friction to be able to leverage your Yankee team and MEGA to help you accomplish some of these things. Yep. So I'm going to and thank you to Dax who gave us permission to share this story. Then we'll wrap.
Yeah. So just to preface, again, if I could have you look at two things on this quote is one, the price, and then the actual Premier contract, as it'll come back later. And this example, I saw some doubt in the crowd when I was explaining the situation where a client kept getting pour after pour after pour. This was a very similar example, and it actually paid off dividends. So again, quote for a low temperature sterilizer. It was benchmarked. Our system rated it poor, so the green, yellow, and red rating scale. This is a picture of it. Potential savings of up to 5%, between 5 and 10%, and greater than 10%. $145,000 rated as poor. There were probably 2 or 3 additional iterations after this, which I have a progression sheet after this next quote. But this was the final quote that they actually got to. So from $145,000 to $80,000, again, same contract, but a much better price. And to show you that progression, the list price was just over $246,000, rated poor. To the GPO price was $199, also rated poor. The rep's best price, which was the starting price, was $145,000. Best price number 2, $120, poor. 100, poor.
Dax, this was Dax who gave us permission to use this. I think this is when you called Sam and said, come on, you guys are messing with me. You're messing with me, right? There's no way this is true. So even to somebody who's an experienced supply chain professional, right, sometimes the data astounds even us. And the answer is it's always true, because we would never publish a rating or provide information that didn't have a basis in empirical reality. But is that fair? There was a little bit of incredulity.
I was going to get to that, but that's okay. So the actual final price was $80,000, and they originally only had enough budget for one. This allowed them to actually go back and request $10,000 more, I think is the number, which is a much easier ask for anybody asking for money than another 145. So they were able to buy two. They still saved 60% compared to the GPO price, and it is possible. So, all in all, MEGA EVMS, we talked about a lot of things today. I'd be happy to debrief with anybody that has questions, but we have the most complete information, we have the best technology, it is the easiest to use, and we also have services like our conversation that we talked about with Debbie to enable the most savings, and we guarantee it. So there is no financial risk. If you sign a contract, we guarantee you will save more money in the first year than the cost of the subscription, or you'll get a rebate, and we've never had to issue a rebate. So the proof is in the pudding, and we'd love the opportunity to work with any hospitals that have not yet worked with us. Questions?
I've known Peter for a few years. I've been in biomed.
Great.
Yeah, I've been in biomed for 40 years, supply chain for 25, and I'm telling everybody, if you're not using MEGA or another benchmarking for capital, you're losing money. That's the bottom line is, you either got to use these guys or one of the other two or three, or you're losing money for capital.
Thank you, right? It's a structural thing. It's like navigating without GPS, right? Like, could you do it, right? Sure. But there's a lot more bumps in the road, and it's hard to know where there's a bridge down or a road closed, and the same is true of benchmarking. So thank you, but your years of experience pay that off.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.